Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for September 16th, 2016. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. In the previous session, something we looked at here was how price rejected the two-day lows here. You had prices below two-day lows. That was rejected. That's something we talked about right away, was how prices were rejecting the previous session's low, and that could lead to a rally back toward the highs across the range. And you can see not only did that happen, but it closed above the previous session's range, forming an outside engulfing day, where the low here is below this low, and the high, or the close rather, is above the previous session's high. That's an outside buy reversal type of day. Typically speaking, on those, you have a midpoint retest, which is already happening right here, and that's initially the primary area where responsive bulls want to defend for a shot at seeing if we can squeeze back up toward 54 to 58 half. One of the primary targets we were looking for to reach yesterday in the trading room was 44s. We had a nice confluence at that zone, and we reached it as a high. This pullback here could get you into the next area up, which could be between 51 and 54. Now, if we take a look here at the intraday time frame, drop this down here. There we go. Looking at the intraday time frame, one thing again yesterday, what was very interesting was just how the day started off, and that was with the rejection below the previous session's low price. The previous session's low, the rejection happening here, pushes higher, comes back, defends it, that's absorption, and then we take off two highs. Now we're pulling back, and again the midpoint of this previous session's range. Also, this is closing VWAP from yesterday, so prices below it were defended. All of those here in an uptrending move imply that we could see more strength. So while we could see a little bit more development here at these lows, once we push back above 36s, 37s, we could be on a full-on squeeze back toward the 51 to 54 zone, or as high as the previous FOMC level of 51.58, rather 21.58 half. All right, let's take a look at crude oil. Here's crude. We'll bring up a daily chart with the PivotBoss pivots. These are the weekly PivotBoss pivots that I use just by default for the most part. Right here, what we have is crude oil pushing down below two-day lows and closing lower. And what I mentioned before, and this is what we mentioned before here, was that if price pushes down like this, the primary area to defend as a bear will be that midpoint and as high as those previous lows. And look at price came right into that midpoint, was defended, and that was the highs of the day. Now prices are forming kind of a little range here over the last couple of days, and we could see further development down here, but at some point a push above that zone could lead to another squeeze back toward value at 46.69. I still believe we're building the larger triangle pattern, that larger coiled up or compression pattern. We're still in development, so I still think we're going to see a little bit more of this before we see actual expansion. But once we do, it's going to be a big, significant move, because this is also the apex of an even larger coiled up range that, if you look at it in a weekly chart, looks very, very promising for the next major trending move. All right, let's take a look at the intraday time frame here. Here you go. This is the intraday. What we see here, at least yesterday, again, yesterday was significant in that price held and traded in a range throughout most of the session. That's what we talked about in the trading room. We have a trading range market, look to fade the edges, fade new highs, fade new lows. We're still in that range. So 44.30 down to about 43.30. It's a 1-point trading range right now, and we're working our way down. So short term, this thing is trying to push a little bit lower here, but once we get to the lower edge of the range, fade new lows for a shot back up. We get up here, you look to fade new highs back down. Expansion from this range will be nice. And again, I'm thinking that if we can get above 44.40 here, this thing could be very, very nice for a move back toward value around 46.69. Okay, let's take a look at gold futures here. Here's gold. We'll go up to the daily time frame, start from a top-down view. One thing about gold here recently, let me show my drawings here. We have a new key range here that's come into play. I'm going to go ahead and hide that because we have so many key levels there, so I'm going to hide the fibs. Right here, this is a major important level, that's 1306. We continue to push quietly toward that level. Yesterday, what I talked about was that bears were defending the previous week's close price, and it was apparent, and also the weekly pivot range. And so that actually became the high of the day. Price pushed to new lows and closed just above the previous session's low. Now we have a midpoint retest here that's defending. This all implies more weakness. And one thing I mentioned before was 1306 has been a significant area of support. You want to continue to defend that zone until proven otherwise. But if this thing cannot hold, 1300, 1290 especially, then we are very likely headed for a major move back toward major value between 1243 and 1251.60, and perhaps as low as 1208.30, which is the bottom of the key range from before. So that would be, or the bottom of a trading range. So that would be significant. Right now, the primary idea is to look for responsive bulls to defend off these lows. But at some point, if we get a major break here, it could be a very quick move back to prior value. But I've been of the thought that we've been in a bullish trending market throughout the year in gold. We will likely continue to see that trending bullish behavior. But if support can't be held, then you have to auction back toward value. All right, let's take a look now at the NQ here. Here's the NQ. This is a daily time frame of the NQ. One thing we talked about in the trading room yesterday was if today, or if yesterday being today, begins to push through these prior highs here and it turns into a squeeze day, then that would imply that the midpoint of the day will close here and we'll likely see a move as high as 48.06 half, 48.20 because of how that measurement goes out. That's a very important, 50% squeeze day rule, where when the stops come out and you squeeze, you usually see the midpoint close somewhere about where the stops came out. That's a major important type of measurement day. And usually what you see after that is a digestion day, maybe a pullback day. But any pullback, even as shallow or as deep as these previous highs here, where the midpoint is still an opportunity for bulls to defend. So right now, very solid squeeze day yesterday. Typically speaking, you usually see either digestion or buy the dips, buy the pullback type of mentality. So any pullback as deep as these 47.70s, I believe, 47.70, could be a nice buying opportunity for an attempt to push to new highs. Because right now we have kind of an expanding type of thing going on. And with this recent rejection here off of these lows and this major bounce back, we could be looking at a big time squeeze move higher. That takes us easily into 49.46, which would be 50% beyond these previous highs. So we could be looking at a big time squeeze move here if bulls can continue to keep prices above 47.70 in the near term. All right, looking at the intraday time frame. There it is. So on the intraday time frame here for the NQ, one thing again we talked about yesterday was the rejection of the previous session's low price and how that implies a move across the range. That was right here. That was the previous session's lows and we rejected, right? So I said, okay, look for a continued push back toward the previous highs. Price got to the previous highs, then pushed through them and continued higher. So very important the way that squeeze turned out. But that 47.70 is right here, and that's where all the stops really came out and this thing continued higher. So right now what we have is a pullback. We're sitting right in the pivot range, which is a higher value relationship perhaps. This pullback right here into this zone could offer a nice squeeze. Again, very similar to the ES. If we can get above the previous close here, 48.12 half, it will be a very nice trending squeeze move, likely back toward 48.39 half, and perhaps even higher in the near term. But this LVN right here is everything. That's 47.90. You see that LVN? That's a significant LVN that if pullbacks occur into that zone, bulls will be diligent about defending. Failure to hold that area opens up a return back to 5-day V pocket 47.40. So that's going to be important here to see how this plays out. But right now, in an uptrending move, the next day when price holds below the previous close, it's because these sellers here are being absorbed by bulls, and then a stops run above 48.12 half, above that close, leads to panic covering by those short sellers there. So they start to cover their shorts, and this thing just starts to go higher. So we'll see how that plays out. There's no guarantee of that, but that's a play that I'll be looking for today. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and happy Friday.